and welcome back. Our final conversation this morning, we have been joined by the Public Relations Officer for the Belize Police Department, none other than Douglas Hyde. Good morning. We have also been joined by the Director of the Leadership Intervention Unit, my good friend William Dawson. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Now we're here to discuss basketball, but in the context of community outreach, so to speak, right? In terms of what the police department has been doing, bringing together young men from various communities in Belize City to participate in the tournament. Now, let's talk first of all about the tournament and what this means for unifying these various neighborhoods.
Go ahead, bro.
Chris, let me say thanks for the opportunity to be on Open Your Eyes. One of the media hosts that have been supporting us, Channel 5, from our onset in 2015. I can remember clearly Commissioner Williams, then he was the officer commanding Eastern Division, took over, and one of his approach was community policing, and strategy was to reach out in the communities. Every weekend, specifically on Sundays, we would have Community Family Day, and it was in that concept and initiative that the young men from the different neighborhoods, when we were visiting and have these family days, came out and asked the commissioner to let's do something in the area of sports. And he immediately called myself along with, at that time, Assistant Superintendent of Police Elroy Kakamo, who had community policing, to come up with different initiatives. And I immediately, because of my experience playing basketball over the past years, I immediately put together a document along with Mr. Kakamo, and then we presented to Commissioner. The strategy was to get these different guys in having their own basketball team and competing against each other on their basketball courts. Along with that, we would have literally tried to pull them together to now and again have different sessions with them. And 2015 was the first step. We had a good season, if I can say. Commissioner reach out to places such as Digicel and Boyne, Sports Council, City Council in terms of partnership and sponsorship. And I can tell you we start off with 8 teams. We finished that season with 6. We went into 2016 with 8 again, and we finished with 8. 2017 we went with 10, and we finished with 8. And remember 2018 and 2019 we went to 12 teams and we finished with 10. And COVID came in 2020 and 2021, and that really put a damper with the guys. And during that time we also lost some of them to gun and gang violence and also COVID. Earlier this year there's a multi-sectoral approach, and I know Mr. Dawson will talk more about that, that when we had this raise of shootings in the city, the different ministries and organizations got together in looking at what specifically we can do immediately to address some of these issues. I know that one of the discussion came up of intervention through sports. Commissioner Williams immediately put on the table this basketball tournament to revive it and bring it back in the communities. He immediately called me in the office and he said, Doug, I want you to work with Mr. Dawson in making sure that this happened. So I was assigned for the past couple of months, putting in the groundwork, working with our team there at Community Policing, meeting with the different organizations, working with our sponsors to revive them back. And I must say a big thank you to the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Minister specifically, Honorable Karim Musa, Honorable Ferguson from Ministry of Sports and Mr. Usher likewise, and Honorable Dolores, who all came together in supporting this initiative. This year we have 15 teams. Actually we had 18 registered, but 15 we start off with. And the 15 of them are from Belize City and also the Belize districts. First time we have, including in the tournament, Ladyville, Hattieville, and Mahogany Heights. First time. And this is like a whole new experience for us, but also for them. Because the way how we have strategized it from 2015 is that we have identified 4 different courts in Belize City, basketball courts, such as complex basketball court, Civic Center outside Yaba Green and Buttonwood Bay, that we will rotate the games in the city to play in these different areas, but also we're going to play in Ladyville and Hattieville. Coming this weekend, we're going to have Ladyville court to play at, and we're excited about that too.
Yeah. Now, the idea behind this is to get the communities to put together their own teams. How does this work, especially given the ongoing turf wars that we've been facing?
And that's a good question. Strategy of that was we met with the leaders.
Okay.
So key leaders within these different groups we've spoken to. In fact, we've invited them to discussions, and again, remember how we started off, it was them who reached out to Commissioner back then in terms of the idea. So all we've done over the past years is to continue that dialogue with them in bringing them to the table. They are the ones who then decide their team and select their players. We have no kind of influence in that or in decisions in that. It is them who do that. And very importantly, you would think that because of the different type of guys, you would think that they will bring, how would I say, persons who can play. But believe me, you will see raw talent and skills coming from these different communities that sometimes you would not appreciate because we are already used to seeing the semi-pro level or the other levels of basketball. But you see the raw talent coming out from these neighborhoods, especially from back of Martins Lake, because I have to recognize that there are a lot of talents coming from back of that era and other areas too, but a lot of skills guys come from that era.
So let's look at what happened on Saturday then with the launch of the tournament. It happened at the complex court, right? If you look at the neighborhood and the players that come from those neighborhoods, and then you look at the fact that while not all of these individuals who are participating in the tournament belong to a gang, for instance, they do come from other areas of the city that you could identify or associate with a particular group of young men operating in that area. Now, my question has to do with the dynamics of that, and of course, the safety for persons coming in and out of those neighborhoods to participate in this initiative.
Good point. As you rightfully said, these are challenging neighborhoods. The opening ceremony and of course the launch of the tournament this past Saturday shows a lot on our coordination and of course what we expect during this tournament 5 months. Security, believe me, I made sure that working with the commanders of these different operational teams and of course intelligence teams, I have to recognize their support to this initiative. Commissioner made sure that we will have tight security. I would describe it, you see how we may lock down for COVID in a period of time. It's that kind of security that we will have during these games. We will have community policing officers who are the officers on ground working with the different teams, along with key people such as from Community Rehab Department and the Department of Youth Services. These are trained counselors, trained social workers, who through this program that we have attached with the tournament is a life skill. The life skills component is working with them on different topics such as anger management, communication skills, conflict resolutions, key topics that when Saturdays the games are played, these, we call them diffusers, will be there to support and assist the members at their game time. But the security will be there to make sure that whatever may be a threat, we will be there in supporting to make sure that things run safe.
That's such a crucial point. William, tell me from an intervention standpoint, what does it say that these young men and members from different communities can come together peacefully in the name of sports, given the crime that we've seen associated with turf wars?
Right, well, as you are aware, the Leadership Intervention Unit is taking a three-pronged approach: social development, change behavior, and a violence interrupter component. And like Douglas said, this is where the multi-sectoral approach takes effect, because we're looking at a multi-agency support system. And in this regard, it's not just about the raw talent that they have about playing basketball, We're looking at their mental capacity, their state of mind, looking at their character and personality as well. And so we have like Ms. Pamela Dyer from the Counseling and Wellness Department. You know, we have to thank Director Kevin Cale of Department of Youth Services for having the youth officers involved, Community Rehabilitation Department. And on Saturday, they were out there because, you know, sports is a heated event and the best of us get emotional at times when, you know, when we're, and so we're just teaching them how to be able to socialize without creating a big havoc and an issue. And also the idea of being able to traverse the city that they grew up in. This is your city, you shouldn't be able to not go into our next neighborhood. Of course, we're taking the necessary security precautions, but we do want them to feel comfortable being able to play without feeling a threat.
You just said something that I think sometimes a lot of people don't recognize about the city, that some of these young men are confined to the street blocks just around them because of threats that exist beyond that.
Yes. You know, it's a serious issue, and while it is that we are working with some of the older guys, it is that another part of it we're working with the youth, because we don't want the youth from these different communities to feel that restriction where they're already feeling it. In fact, I can tell you, in speaking to Brother Timmy Stamp the other day, he has some children that he hosts an after-school program with that he took on a trip. And the children, like it was the first time they've been out to their communities and visited a rural community, and they didn't want to go back, basically, after, you know, experiencing the joy of being somewhere else other than where they grew up. And those are things that we have to look at seriously. We can't continue to have these children live in this bubble as if though it's the norm. It's not normal to be that way. And also what we are looking at, even with this sporting event, is looking these children's community to see if they have the availability to be able to practice sports and to play as normal children do. So we're looking at the psychosocial dynamics from a mental perspective as well. And so it's serious.
And I guess the unspoken part here is rewarding people for positive engagement.
Right.
What's the difference that you see in these players when they are being cheered for, when they're being given medals, when the accolades that they get are for performance on the court rather than anything else?
Let me start off first by saying their response to just the season to start. There's a season for them to play is a big feeling. Mr. Dawson could tell you just the preparation. They are all excited. That's the first step. Knowing that they're going to get each member get a free jersey. So you get a full suited jersey. You get a basketball, and you have to compete for first, second, and third prizes and a big trophy. That builds them up. And what we've also what we're doing is to recognize individuals. So the top scorer, the MVP, best rebounder, best disciplined team. All these things are going to be recognized. That's a good feeling. I saw this Saturday uniquely, the happiness and the smiles, and also some of them coming and saying, man, thanks to bring back the season, thanks to bringing back we together. In fact, we had one of the members from the defending champions 2019 who spoke at our opening ceremony. His remarks was very powerful because he said, if nothing they look forward to was the tournament, and it also bring them together. They wouldn't have that experience of going from one basketball court to the next if this tournament never happened. Bringing the different groups together is also a great accomplishment because they would, as he mentioned, they would never do something like that. They would never go to our next person basketball court and think you're going to play ball like that and think you just done like that. So this gives them and there's the high reality that something turn out negative. Now here comes that we are having a competition in their different neighborhoods and the results are positive. I have seen behavioral change in some of these guys over the past years. Some of these guys aren't approachable persons. Some of them have some lot of and so they have that way of presenting that first. Here comes now, then it's down on the table they talk. Here comes now they're in the different areas they talk to each other in a positive way, a constructive way, a calm way, and that's really large, that's huge. You know, and you can't measure those things because there's no actual measuring tape for such, but we see the behavior in some of them. In fact, they are the ones calling the community policing officers in terms of logistics and coordinations,
Yeah.
how to pick them up, because we are also in charge of picking them up from the different neighborhoods and taking them after the games in terms of security
Yeah,
issues
and that's
likewise too.
part of the turf challenge that we talked about.
Right.
But you know, I don't think anybody should sit and believe that this is a change that you see overnight, but it chips away. Learning discipline, seeing that positive activities does bring recognition as well,
Right.
and even learning to support each other.
Right.
What is that like from your end when you see community leaders, players amongst themselves, team captain, that they have to build their own support network?
Right. You know, it's crazy, but it's just about changing mindset. When these guys are in the prison, most of them have to live together or cohabit in the same area, and there is not an issue. So we are saying, why is it that we can't do that on the outside? And we also have to look at redefining masculinity, because a lot of these feuds are caused by egos, you know, and the inability to reason. And so we bring them to the table as a stakeholder, not having them feel inferior, or while we try to speak condescendingly to them. No, when we are discussing Mr. Hyde, have them involved in the planning of this event. So when there's meetings, they're sitting with police officers, high-ranking police officers, and community members as well around the table. So the inclusion makes them feel as if though they have a say, and that's important.
I think that is the kind of involvement or engagement that they need,
Right.
to make them feel as if though they can also involve themselves in the decision-making process. Because a lot of times they're looked down and frowned upon, right?
Right.
It's not as if though we're bringing them to the table and giving them an equal say in terms of the things that affect them. In this case, it's planning a competition, a tournament, but they are equal stakeholders as well.
And you know, it's only one of the things that we've noticed, especially in the change behavior component, is that the guys realize that the younger generation of youths in their neighborhood actually need to learn the discipline as well. And so what we're trying to do is teach them how to be good leaders and look out for the youths within their communities.
Yeah.
And so once we try to get that at the forefront and let them understand their responsibility in their different neighborhoods, and in that regard, the community will support them in kind. It's a different type of outlook you're seeing. It won't happen overnight. It's a slow process, because it's years of having one mentality, a defense mechanism that's built up for survival. And so that doesn't go away overnight. But it's a good step forward, and I'm happy that we're working along with the community police, the behavior modification police, who are police officers who are not necessarily on the front line of fighting crime and violence. They're more looking at the social development aspect of it, which is big.
All right. And of course, you want the community support with it too.
Well, of course, what some of these guys are doing is that they are doing their own advertisement and publicity, because, like, for example, Baka Complex this weekend, the defending champions and the second team, they are the ones who help coordinate and organize the activities there. So we had no less than 300 persons out there showing up Saturday, which was huge.
Yeah.
And I'm optimistic about the villages, because I know how villages stand. One activity as early as 10 o'clock in the morning, you sit back until the end of the day. So I'm excited to see how the village are going to turn out, supporting both Hattieville, Ladyville, and Mahogany Heights.
All right. So the games are every Saturday?
Every Saturday from now until October.
Okay.
From 10 a.m. and I think you'll finish around 4 or 5 in the evening. You'll see no less than 6 games, 12 teams competing against each other. And it's really fun. So just as this past weekend went, we've seen families come out, we've seen adults, young kids coming out to support. Same thing we'll ask in all the different communities. Come and check out the thing, come and support the guys. It's a motivation likewise. It's amazing to see some of these different eras coming out in their community, but coming to compete. Commissioner Williams mentioned in his remarks that it's not about shooting guns. It's about taking the ball and shoot it in the hoop. But it's also a time for you to build that type of sportsmanship and that love where we're not going to show it other way, so to show it now. So I want to echo those words likewise to the players and the community.
All right. And it's open to the public if they want to go out and support.
Yes, free and supportive. They just show up and enjoy some of the nice food where
Pick
some
your
of these
favorite
people,
team.
these people are cooking, because I understand now that the communities are doing their own food selling, which is something good.
Nice.
And we encourage that, and so you could go and get some food, but you also go and support the team where you choose. No have to be also your team from the community, but I know that end up to happen that more people are going to support their community team.
So who's expected to be in the lead?
That's a good question. I told
There's always a favorite
I
in every competition.
I told William, this is so amazing that this seems like it will be a village versus the city now, because the village, the three village teams decide to defend the era, and Belize City now, of course, having the most teams from the city, they defend also the city too.
And the defending champs are?
Ornule basketball team from Baka Complex.
Okay. All right, so we'll see who comes out on top.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for coming in and telling us about it. We know you had built up quite a bit of momentum before COVID, and now it's back, and it's getting the tournament going again, and some positive activities in the community.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
too.
you guys for having us.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.